everybody. Good day. Nice to see so many of you. Nice to see some familiar and new faces. We'll give maybe 1 minute for more people to come in and we will officially start. While we are doing that, if I can ask everybody in the call to please rename themselves with their organization next to their name so you can follow what we have, or you can just put, for example, Rod of Pollinate Impact. Just so that we know who's in the room with us and we can identify you properly. Thank you so much. I hope everybody is having a great day and you can hear the background music just stopped by. I was about to say that we were playing some songs just to get everybody ready for today's discussion. All right. Okay, so while we wait for others, maybe we will start. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our session for today. We're so glad to have you with us. For those that I haven't met yet, I'm Rod, based in Manila, and the community choreographer of Pollinate Impact, which is just a fancy way of saying I design these convening spaces where ecosystem leaders like yourselves can think out loud together. Welcome to our session, Seeds of Success, Reimagining Entrepreneur Support for Greater Impact in East Africa and Beyond, with our two wonderful partners, the William Davidson Institute and Sankalp Dialogues. Across the Global South, ESOs, incubators, and accelerators, like many of you, are navigating shifting markets, rising expectations, and tightening resources. And East Africa is no exception. So in partnership with WDI and Sankalp Dialogues, this Seeds of Success session takes us a closer look at the research behind reimagining the future of ESOs in East Africa to surface the region's most urgent challenges and the practical solutions that can move us forward. We'll unpack key insights from the report, explore the evidence-backed recommendations WDI has put forth, and most importantly, open the space for all of you to reflect on what these findings mean in their own contexts. Because at Pollinate Impact, we've seen these same challenges echoed across different regions, Southeast Asia, South Asia, and Sub-Saharan Africa. And we know that real progress happens when we turn shared pain points into shared solutions. This session is designed not just to inform, but to mobilize. Together, we'll identify high potential solutions together, explore what can be adapted or piloted across the network, and collectively imagine what the future of enterprise support could look like if we move beyond insights and into action. All right, Aditi, if you can please pull up our slides for today. Thank you so much. All right, let's move to the next one. So if you're new to Pollinate Impact, we are a member-led network of impact incubators and accelerators across the Global South. Impact incubators, like many of you here, play a critically important role in supporting entrepreneurs, and yet you often receive the least support yourselves, navigating restrictive funding, rising expectations, and constant resource constraints. Pollinate Impact is here to change that. We are a network that loves to collaborate, connect, and convene so we can build a more resilient and effective impact incubation industry together. So if you are an impact incubator in the Global South and not yet part of the network, consider this your sign. Our members get access to funding leads, proposal support, tools, and shared resources, and most importantly, peer-to-peer connection with people who truly understand the work that you do. You'll see the link and QR code on your screen, and I'm sure it'll also be shared on the chat below. So we'd love to have you part of our buzzing community. Right, next slide, please. One quick highlight for incubator leaders in the room, our growth guidance program is currently open for applications. It's a focused one-on-one support journey designed specifically for Global South incubators, navigating different challenges like financial sustainability, talent, governance, and strategy, because sometimes this work can feel isolating, and you can get some help from our coaches to go through it together. So if you're a member, this is something that you can actually apply for already. And if you're not yet a member, this might be a benefit that you're interested in. And applications close on February 25 and slots are limited. So we hope to see you at our growth guidance program. Okay, next slide, please. A quick spotlight on what's buzzing at Pollinate Impact. We have several upcoming sessions from incubator collaboration to investor dialogues. They're all listed on our website. So I do encourage you to check them out and join what resonates. If you'll be at Sankalp at the end of February, we are hosting a side event, which is a speed dating style networking session that brings incubators, accelerators, and investors into structured discovery conversations. It's designed to move surface level networking into real alignment and understanding, and we'd absolutely love to see some of you there. Right. Before we jump in, just a quick housekeeping reminder for everybody. If you haven't yet, if you can please rename yourself with your name and organization next to it. That way we all know who's in the room and who to message later for that, hey, let's collaborate kind of chats. Okay. Next slide, please. So today we'll be moving through a few different phases. We'll start with a check-in to ground us to be led by Tess. Then we'll hear some welcoming remarks from Adi of WDI, and then the report insights from them as well. After that, we'll shift into a reverse Q&A, which means you'll have the opportunity to kind of get into a conversation with WDI and Pollinate Impact and not just absorb the research. And we'll also hear some remarks from Sankalp, from Karnika, and then we'll move into breakout groups where the real work begins. We'll be kind of looking through the solutions together in smaller rooms, and then we'll come back for a plenary harvest to surface patterns and high potential actions and close with a short checkout. So for this to work well, everybody, we need your cooperation and your engagement today. And I love seeing the chat already kind of buzzing as we speak. So I hope we can stay present, contribute in the chat when you can. Let's turn cameras on when we can, especially in breakout rooms, challenge ideas respectfully, build on each other's thinking. So the richness of today really depends far more on what you bring than what's on any slide here today. So we believe that real progress happens when we turn our shared pain points into these solutions, and that only happens when rooms like this are active, honest, and collaborative. So I'm really excited to hold this space with all of you. And with that, let's begin with our check-in. So Tess, take it away.
All right, thank you so much. Aditi, you can move to the next slide. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Tess. I am part of the Pollinate Impact team. I'm based in Nairobi, Kenya. And so today we are going to be doing something we call a chart waterfall. So I'm going to put this statement in the chat box. And basically, you're going to complete a sentence by saying, my name is X, so my name is Tess, from Pollinate Impact in the country that you come from. And then you're going to complete a sentence. Enterprise support in my context would be so much stronger if only ... So that's the part you, the participant, get to fill out. Now, how does this work? I know you are reading ahead of me, but I'll still go through it. So how does this work? I want you to take 60 seconds to think about your response, and then you'll type your answer in the chat. But don't hit send yet. As you're thinking about your response, be specific, share what's real for you right now. And then when I say go, everyone sends at once. I hope we're together till there. And then after the waterfall, so the waterfall basically means all the messages will come into the chat all at the same time. Once all the messages are in the chat, I'd like each of you to take about 30 to 60 seconds to notice whose responses resonate with you. Feel free to leave a comment, feel free to leave an emoji, and ask yourself, what did you notice? What was there anything surprising from what was shared? Yeah, so I hope that sounds good. The slide will be held up just in case you need to hear the instructions again. But type your answer in the chat, but don't hit send yet. All right, so I'm gonna give each of you 60 seconds to think about your response. And then we'll have some music in the background as you think about the answer to the question. Enterprise support in my context would be so much stronger if only ... So all the best. Alrighty. Rod, you want to put for some background music?
Give me a minute. I think I can't share the song while somebody is screen sharing. Would you like me to sing, Tess? Just kidding. Won't.
I think the bigger question is, would the audience like you to sing? No, but no worries, no worries. All right, so enterprise support in my context would be so much stronger if only. Let's just put up the timer. Just a reminder, don't answer, don't type in the answer in the chat, but don't hit send yet. So once I say go, all of us will type in our responses at the same time. No worries, Stacy. No worries, no worries, no worries. Okay, so I've just put a small timer for us. We have 26 seconds left. Okay, time is up. So, okay, go. I see everyone is dropping them. So let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
This is so cool
Okay.
to see everyone's answers.
Oh, wow.
Great. This is awesome, Tess. I see some that really focus on more collaborations among ESOs. This is something that I'm seeing as a pattern for a lot of the answers, and also like better collaboration with other stakeholders in the ecosystem. Is there anything that's jumping out for you?
Yeah, I think I'm seeing a little bit around more intentional ways of tailor making the needs of the enterprises. Sorry, tailoring the solutions to the needs of the enterprises. I'm seeing that across a couple of responses.
I also see policy being mentioned, like government and institutions, if we had stronger policy frameworks for enterprise support.
Right. Okay, I see something around collaborating on market trends and also digital inclusion. I think that's kind of the same thing. Anything else that you're seeing?
Yeah, Donald really summed it up very well here with collaborations, financial sustainability, capacity building. I think those are all very important patterns also that we're seeing in insights of the group. It's great.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. Please take some time to go through each of the responses, and if something resonates with you, feel free to leave a comment or an emoji. Over to you, Rod, and thank you all so much for participating.
Thank you, Tess, and thank you so much, everybody, for this rich comment section, chat section already with all of your ideas. We hope that you keep this up throughout the entire session. So now I would like to give the floor over to William Davidson Institute, Wendy, to introduce us to WDI, and then Yakuta to take us through the report. So Wendy, please go ahead.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Huge thanks to the whole Pollinate team, as well as Intellecap, who's part of this as well. And we just are thrilled to partner with all of you. I think these are issues that we have a sort of shared interest in exploring and finding ways to problem solve together. So I'm going to be super fast on just introducing WDI for those of you who don't know us, because I want to give room for my brilliant colleague Yakuta to walk you through more of our insights. But WDI, we're a global nonprofit. We are focused on empowering entrepreneurs, enterprises, and ecosystems in emerging markets with business tools to succeed and scale impact. And we have been around for 30 years. You can go to the next slide. We've had a long time focus on kind of solving for business, unlocking the power of business in emerging markets, and we have a focus on some of the critical global challenges. And really thinking about how do we drive inclusive economic growth. We're actually affiliated with the University of Michigan, and that allows us to have sort of deep access to one of the top research universities in the world here. And we've been doing a lot of training and reached many countries over the years. Under our strategy, we work in three ways. We're a knowledge builder, where we really want to be able to generate the key insights and learning in this space. And what we're talking about today is a key example of that. We see our role as an enterprise accelerator, and enterprises are really at the heart of what we do. We fundamentally believe that enterprises in emerging markets hold the keys to solving many of the challenges that we see in the world, both in their own regions, but also globally. But they face a lot of challenges in their pathways to scale and how to get there. So our role is to figure out how do we clear that runway for those enterprises and equip them with the right tools and support. But to do that, we are not trying to be an accelerator ourselves. We're working with many accelerators in that broader ecosystem. And that really gets to this third pillar of playing a role as an ecosystem catalyst. So we're looking a lot at those ESOs in the ecosystem. We're thinking about how do we unlock funding? How do we think about those sort of other ecosystem enablers that will help these enterprises scale? So that's the space we're playing. We have sectoral focus in three core areas: in energy and mobility, in climate health, and in health. And then impact measurement is really underpinning all three of those. If you go to the next slide, what we're talking about today is our report looking at ESOs. And what we wanted to do is take a deeper dive in. There's a lot of challenges that ESOs face that have been long-held challenges. I was at USAID many moons ago, it feels like now, and we were talking about some of the same challenges back then that are present today. But what we wanted to do is take a deeper dive, because there's a lot of people who have been thinking about different types of solutions. And we wanted to try to align what are some of the solutions to some of these long-held challenges that we should be looking at, that we should be looking to try to catalyze collectively with partners that can tackle some of these challenges. And we want to do that with a broader ecosystem of players. That's why working with groups like Pollinate, Intellecap, and others really allow us to think about how we can play a catalytic role in coming up with these new solutions to drive real impact. So one more slide. And that is just, what is our intention? And as we look at some of these challenges, we want to look and see, are there scalable solutions? Are there ways that we can think about program design that may meet the needs of entrepreneurs along at their various stages along their journey? How can ESOs work more effectively with limited donor resources? Or how can we address some of the sustainability challenges for ESOs? Because for you to do your job well, you have to be able to have the kind of funding necessary to move your work forward and to even be able to provide the right types of services that these entrepreneurs need. And all of this, of course, is about developing that stronger pipeline for the investors. And I'm curious. I'm going to be fascinated to see the discussion coming up in terms of some of the questions are asked of you. We're putting the entrepreneurs at the center, but these ESOs are playing this critical role, and to some extent, you're also at the center here. And how do we make sure that you can drive your agendas forward most successfully? And a lot of that will come from really thinking about how do we have conversations like we're doing today and continuing to push forward some of these solutions together. And we're hoping to work with you all and play a catalytic role. So I'm going to hand things over to my colleague Yakuta, who will walk you through some of what we learned and hopefully tee up a really exciting conversation.
Great. Thank you, Wendy. Hi, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you so much for being here. We totally appreciate it because we know you have 100 other things to do on your to-do list. I'm Yakuta Fatehi. I also work at William Davidson Institute. I'm on the impact measurement and management team, and we're a two-person team. My colleague Heather Esper is on the chat as well and on the call. So please feel free to say hi to us, to engage with us, even after this session, especially if you have questions on measurement, continuous improvement, learning. Those are really where we totally love to geek out and be nerds. So when we were designing today's webinar, we actually decided that instead of a regurgitation of the report, we wanted to use the report as context setting and also as a launchpad for the next piece of today's session, which is the Q&A with Ariel on the hot seat and with all of you also on the hot seat. So my overview of this report is going to be quick, and it's going to really just help you understand where we're coming from in terms of the challenges and the solutions. And then also in the breakout rooms, you'll have a lot more time to kind of chew on the different solutions. So with that being said, that's my caveat for why I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. So first up, as Wendy talked about, right? Like these are long-standing challenges. When we started speaking to different stakeholder actors, and so one of the first things we want to share is that we used principles of systems lens, right? So what that means is we decided that we were not going to talk to just the ESOs or just the entrepreneurs, but rather we are going to first do a stakeholder analysis and identify who are all the key stakeholders in this ecosystem. And then we were going to have multiple conversations with multiple organizations, including Pollinate Impact, including AfriLabs. So what we came to realize is that, our report is not going to create value by just regurgitating the solutions again that everybody is very well aware of. In fact, even on the calls, it was crystal clear. Everybody is really aware of these challenges. So instead, we said, we're going to actually understand the interdependencies and the interconnectedness among the challenges. And so as you get a chance to read the report, you'll see that we talk about the same challenge on different actor sections, and we raised that, okay, this actually did show up on the previous one as well. So I wanted to take you through an example. So, when you talk to ESOs, they're saying, look, we understand we are over-reliant on our donors. We're constantly writing proposals. These are often very short-term grants, which means that we are constantly locked into this cycle of writing proposals to our donors. And then so they're saying it from their angle. So the entrepreneurs are then telling us, well, we're not going to pay for programs that are generic, that don't really meet us where we're at right now. And so it just kind of pushes the ESOs to be further over-reliant on their donors. When you speak to the donors, they're like, well, we have stakeholders who want very easily measurable outcomes. They want tangible outcomes. They want easy indicators. They want fast. They want to see fast impact, and they're kind of locked in there as well. And then when you talk to the investors, they're absolutely frustrated that the pipeline quality, right? Because with the ESOs focusing on writing grants and providing generic trainings because donors want 50 to 100 to 200 entrepreneurs trained in one go, there's this real vicious cycle, right? So it's not necessarily a chicken and egg problem as much as it's a vicious cycle that just keeps feeding in. So we wanted to give you an example of that. And then also these challenges, right? Not only are they creating other systemic level issues, but they're also compounded both by those systemic level issues. So we again put some examples of that. Lack of trust amongst actors. I think that I know Ariel really highly focuses on this as well in our conversations that we had, was there's a real missing trust between the different actors because there's a misalignment in incentives. We know there's superficial engagement. There's also this what if we want to be Silicon Valley when the context is completely different? And so that's what we mean by this kind of superficial engagement. Of course, there are policy and regulatory gaps. We heard that even as Ruud was taking us through the different responses. And then this one is, I think, also another really important one is that who in the system or in the ecosystem is actually responsible to make change happen? Who is can be held accountable? Everyone keeps kind of pointing fingers to one another, right? So we just wanted to give you a flavor of the challenges because the solutions actually map onto those various challenges. Now, the solutions, what we did was after we completed the conversations and challenges, we directly went into solutions, and we decided that we were going to actually not prioritize one solution over another. We were going to, in fact, document what different organizations are piloting, implementing, or even just in the design phase. And in fact, some of those are, we released this in October, and it's possible that they've actually started piloting as well. So as you can see, 25 solutions and counting. And we'll explain that part in the breakout room. So 25 solutions to digest that quickly, especially if we're not giving you a priority structure, we're not telling you one costs more than another. They all come with strengths and challenges during implementation. And in fact, the report documents some of those that the organization shared with us. And that's also where we put our own analytical lens. And so we organize the solutions into three levels. You have the meta level. Are the solutions implemented at the organizational level or the systems level? So that's the meta level. Then we broke it down into macro. So these were based on our research questions. And our research questions were also not developed in a room in Ann Arbor, which is where we're based. They were actually co-developed with ecosystem actors. In fact, at Sankalp Africa, through surveys, we use best practices around participatory research. And so the research questions that frame the entire report were actually co-created with you. And I know that's been a theme on the chat as well. And so our solutions focus on improving ESO financial sustainability, improving ESO program design, strengthening governance, leadership, and impact measurement and management. That's what IMM is. And then strengthening the ecosystem. And so the strengthening the ecosystem lines up with the system level solutions. And then because they're 25, and how do you digest this quickly? We actually applied a third layer of categorization called micro, where we're focusing on the key elements of the solution. So I'm going to take you through these pretty quickly, but again, in the Zoom breakout room, you will have a lot more time to digest and actually share your experiences with any particular solution that you have put in place, or share with us any solution that is not listed here, but you are implementing and you're seeing benefits from. So in the financial sustainability, of course, you have how can you develop a sustainable business model through revenue generation by the ESO? So we have accelerator as a service. So of course, the ESO is charging for their services. There are other models that were really interesting, like a fee earning ESO hub, where in fact it's the service providers who pay a fee to the hub and then they charge the entrepreneurs. Also, are there ways we can reduce costs? So if you use the revenue minus cost equals profit equation that we learned first day on in our economics class, what can we do on the cost lever? And then around innovative finance, is there an ability to take equity, but given the East African market, what does that look like? And then also, are there other models that we can play with, like revenue-based funding models, right? So what if we created a revenue-based fund for ESOs? So those are what we found as different solutions. Under ESO program design, of course, specialization. There are lots of ESOs who are specializing in particular sectors. Some of them are also specializing across a sector like tech, right? So whether you're using tech in financial services, or you're using tech in climate, or you're using tech in healthcare, they use that kind of band as well. But similarly, if you have a certain type of business model, they specialize on that. You also have around how do you increase value around pitch competitions, right? So that's what we documented under specialization. Under market building, these were really interesting. And they're more, I think, absolutely, they are more geared towards venture studios, because in the first model, what we heard from one particular organization was, can you look within your portfolio to create business to business connections within the portfolio itself, right? So you're creating the portfolio of companies around a market, and that's allowing them to then have each other as partners. Similarly, there are now, we know there are system level donors, we know there are investors looking to invest at a systems level, and there are also ESOs that look at the system level. So that's that second box under the market building is, are there certain market building or system level challenges that ESOs can focus on? And then program augmentation is exactly as it sounds, longer time mentorship, longer time program delivery, and also full stack of services. And this really comes from entrepreneurs saying that, you know, they learn a particular skill on the program, or they learn a particular strategy through their mentors, but then by the time they actually apply it, they don't have the time with the mentor or the program to show what the results are, or to show what the challenges are, so they can brainstorm in real time as they're implementing the strategy. Under ESO governance, leadership, and IMM, internal capacity building is crucial. We had ESOs talk about the challenges around both recruitment as well as retention. And then also, of course, the solution being, can we help ESOs become stronger? Exactly like how Pollinate Impact is working in a member context. What can we do to help ESOs develop those capacities? Under reframing success, this was one of the biggest conversations at Sankalp in our unconference session. It was, we need to go beyond the typical three indicators that you normally have ESOs collect, which is job creation of participating companies, revenue generation of participating companies, and then, of course, the ability to raise more capital. We have a bigger story to tell, and it may be that we need to use qualitative storytelling methodologies, or maybe there are outcome harvesting methodologies, which is also another type of qualitative methodology that could be used. We also heard from donors that we actually need to have a clear review of our outcomes, right? So we need to also be asking for a better set of indicators that actually capture real success. And then, of course, there is the scale framework from Argidius that a lot of you may already know. So we put that down as well, that there are existing frameworks. How can we use those frameworks and learn from them? And then at the ecosystem level, I know we're going through this pretty quickly, and there are a lot of solutions. I promise you, you'll have more time to digest in the breakout room. So at the ecosystem level, there's, of course, inter-collaboration, right? Between the different actors. There's intra-collaboration. So ESOs working together, especially at the pre-competitive stage, because we all recognize that ESOs are also businesses, that there is a competitive angle, and we're not saying to take away from that. We're saying, are there ways that ESOs can work together in the pre-competitive phase, such as sharing administrative infrastructure or sharing certain maybe data points that are pre-competitive data points, things like that. So that's what we're calling intra-collaboration. I think under inter-collaboration, we saw a number of responses in the chat, right? We need to talk with our donors. We need to co-create with our investors. Maybe we even co-select with our investors. Under standard setting, again, this is not new. Around at least the work with government and policy that was in the chat. We did hear of one organization trying to actually set up a rating systems for ESOs because of the challenge of resource fragmentation and of the challenge of managing quality and quality assurance. And then the last one is learning for resilience, right? So conducting learning both at the ESO level, but also amongst the other actors like the donors, especially conducting learning activities and really kind of holding internal teams accountable and having a come to Jesus moment is how I like to put it. And with that, I want to go right into the really exciting piece of today's session is asking some key questions to Ariel and to all of you. I want to leave you on this slide in the sense that it is not doom and gloom. There is so much opportunity. There's so much optimism in the space. We saw 6 really promising trends, and we had our sample size was about 40 organizations. So imagine speaking to more and more and more means more solutions, more promising trends, more excitement. So with that, I'm going to actually stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to welcome Ariel to the stage with me. Well, stage in quotes. Okay.
Yay, thanks, Akita.
All right. So what we are doing on this, and Ro, do you want to explain what we're doing here, or should I just
Sure.
continue?
No worries. Again, thanks, Yakuta. Thanks for sharing all of this. And, in a usual webinar, when people present the report, we have kind of a Q&A section. And for this one, we wanted to kind of reverse it and have Yakuta ask some questions to help us kind of deepen the conversation after looking at these solutions, right? So Yakuta and Ariel are going to have this conversation, and we invite everybody in the room to weigh in if they have any insights that they'd like to share to kind of deepen what Ariel is sharing, or if they have other insights, we really do welcome that. So Yakuta, Ariel, welcome, and really excited.
Amazing. Thank you. Yes. So please, everyone, please type in the chat. We are reading the chat, and we want everyone to engage both on via voice as well as the chat. So my first question to you, Ariel, is, good segue from that last slide about the promising trends, right? So I want to start with optimism. What does the future look like for East Africa's entrepreneurship ecosystem?
Awesome.
What does getting it right look like from the perspective of the various ecosystem actors that we talked about in the report, like the ESOs and the investors and the donors, the entrepreneurs, the intermediaries like you guys as well, and of course, government. So I'm throwing a mouthful, but really, what does the future look like?
No, I love it. And it's definitely not all doom and gloom. There's so much exciting stuff happening. And I think we're well on our way. And to me, I think what I see in the future, and it was really, but anyway, kudos, Rod. Loved the waterfall chat. I love to see what people were saying in there. A lot of it resonated. And somebody said, where entrepreneurs are getting the right types of support when they need it, where they need it, right? I think to me, that's key. And that requires a level of specialization for incubators and accelerators to coordinate, right, over the lifespan, or at least the early years of supporting an entrepreneur, really from idea to growth. That requires specialized financing. I saw in the chat, around access to financing, rather than the current bias that we have towards VC. Not every entrepreneur wants to raise $1 million, and I don't think they should have to, right? That requires development institutions to stop ticking boxes and really looking at incubators and accelerators as experts and partners on the journey, co-designing programs, rather than just treating them as implementing, partners. And all of this it really requires a transformation in the industry, which is not going to happen overnight. But it is slowly starting to happen as we see these key stakeholders of the industry coming together with collective voices, right? It's starting to happen. There's coalitions of funders like the Growth Firms Alliance that are really advocating for systems change and longer efforts there. Pollinate Impact is really shepherding that voice for the incubation industry. Andy's representing the needs of entrepreneurs. Groups like Gin, are doing that for impact investors. But fundamentally, like, to me, what is getting it right look like? It's having those appropriate pathways for the entrepreneurs that we are all supporting that are understood clearly, so that everyone's getting involved as and when they can make informed decisions, right? So entrepreneurs are moving through what's most suitable for them. Incubators are participating in a recognizable structure. Investors can design financing for different types of growth paths. And the education sector is far from perfect, but I think it offers a really nice analogy, right? Like, kind of universally, if you say you're in kindergarten or primary or high school, everybody kind of knows where you're at based on combination of age, ability, social development, right? But within the education system, there's different type of curricula, right? There's Montessori, there's Waldorf, there's Cambridge, there's IB, there's GCSE, sorry. Can you change from 844 to some CBC thing? There's university, there's graduation, there's post-graduation. There's so many options, and there are different pathways for different type of people and different type of children, right? So not everybody wants to go get a doctorate, or dare I say in this group, like an MBA. Is that a bad thing? No. And the system should allow for that and not define it as a failure. So bringing this back to the entrepreneurship system, it currently doesn't allow for that, because this kind of model of high growth businesses has just too long been the model of sole success. And I think success takes many shapes and forms. And being able to recognize that and embrace that diversity, rather than the sort of fallback metrics of how many jobs did you create or how much money did you raise post incubation, we just end up losing sight of the bigger picture. So having that sort of scaffolding, I think to me is where the future of what success looks like. But I would love to also hear from other folks.
Yeah, so other folks, basically everybody else, feel free to just raise your hand or come off mute and share. I think as you were speaking, and I love the analogy from the education sector, right? And I'm curious, like, especially this element of trust, right? To be able to have these conversations, to develop right fit support, everybody needs to have transparent conversations where they feel like they can share back with whoever is the power holder or the resource holder. Re Power absolutely comes from holding resources, right? And it's not just money, it's also data, technical capabilities, etc. So can you also just speak to that? How do we actually enable these conversations to have this right fit support, to have these variety of solutions that you talked about in the education sector so that it could translate for this ecosystem? How do you build trust? If you could give us an example that you've seen that's really good, or if anyone on in our participant group has an example of how they have built trust with their donors to allow them to create this right fit support, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, thanks, Yakuta. My quick sense is, first of all, it's not easy and it really takes time, and it requires all of us to kind of take the time off of our hamster wheel because we're all, trying to close the next deal, trying to raise the next fund, trying to get that grant application in, etc. To stop and talk to people. I mean, trust is about fundamentally building relationships, and what we've seen is there's just not enough opportunities, or people are not making the time to truly talk, connect, and not on a transactional basis, on a relational basis. I'll never forget, we did Rajat, and I think some of the folks on the call were there. We did this discussion, this fishbowl discussion, around this time last year. And one of the incubators was specifically with investors and incubators. And one of the incubators, in the room said, like, I feel like they don't want to hang out with us. So making space and making time for that has to be a priority. But when we're all just nose to the grind, it's a very difficult thing to really truly make time and space for that. So I would just encourage all of us to meet as real people and connect try to connect with each other on a deeper level, and just not a transactional one of what's in it for me, because trust goes both ways. And I think we need to move from the me mentality to a we mentality of again, not losing sight of that bigger picture.
Yeah. No, that is super, super helpful, and also like a clear action item, right? Like, have those conversations, but what's the mindset you bring to it? I want to just pause here, see if any of our participants, anyone on the call would like to jump in or share something, an example of how they have built trust or how they have engaged to ask for a resource that they needed that was for that particular moment.
Yakuta, I think I see Kingwa raised their hand. Yeah, great.
Hi, thank you. I'm gonna just speak without my video off, without my video on for now. So I'll speak to the question asked about what does the future look like. Right now, I'd say, and I'm being optimistic, I'd say it looks slow but sure, even the fact that something like this session is taking place. But then I'll also speak ideally. So I work with change makers, and we divide that as groups in human rights, groups in arts and culture, groups in entrepreneurship, social enterprise, and innovation. And some of these groups, like the people in arts and culture and human rights, haven't traditionally been seen as entrepreneurs, but because we work with them, part of the question is how to enable their sustainability. So one of the ways would be ideally, like what we'd like to see is like how do they harness tech such that it's not just acting reactively, but like mapping out situations. Another thing would be getting the government heavily involved in hosting such conversations, even in leading such conversations. And lastly, the future would look connected. Like I've read in the chat about what the participants here are doing, and I'm like, wow, I'd wanna, like, I already want to hear more about what they're doing, like even meeting and just like touching base, even like having maybe like a database where like I can not just me alone, but where people can find out who's out there, what are they doing, what can we learn from, how do I reach out to these people? So yeah, thank you.
No, I love that. Any reactions to that, Ariel, or anyone else? Please, guys, don't feel shy. This was meant to be this way. We wanted to engage with everybody.
No, I love that. Thanks so much for sharing, Kingwa. And yeah, I think that there's a lot of information asymmetry, which again sort of erodes the trust when you don't know who's doing what. And that's also a big issue that we've seen. So totally agree on that. And as well as just agree with you on the governments having visibility of what's going on and being present. Because there is some cool stuff that's happening elsewhere in the global south where government is really doing some impressive work. And I think, yeah, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. There could be adopted elsewhere, but I think, yeah.
Yeah. So okay, so that it's a really good segue into the next question, right? Is that so we what happens if we imagine a future and love setting up scenarios and a hypothetical, but it's like what Wendy explained is we often put the entrepreneurs at the center of this ecosystem, right? It's the resources for the entrepreneurs, how to, and especially, often forcing them to scale when maybe they're not ready to scale, or maybe that's not part of their goals for the next, whatever, 1 year or 6 months or whatnot, right? They want to really kind of excel in one market before they scale versus especially VC money is pushing them maybe to grow faster than they can. So what and so that's what, right? We're always thinking about the entrepreneur at the center. There was this really interesting LinkedIn conversation that was happening about what if we put the ESO at the center. And so I'd love to ask you that, Ariel, is that what happens in that kind of a scenario when we put the ESO at the center of the ecosystem rather than the entrepreneurs? What are the pros and cons of that? So what are the trade-offs? What kind of infrastructure would we need to set up for that to happen and make it a success? And then what would success actually look like? So a loaded question, a bit of a hypothetical. I don't know how people feel about hypothetical questions, but just to imagine another setup, would that actually help the sector move forward faster? Because agreed with what was said earlier, both by you and in the chat, it takes time. These types of changes take time.
Yeah. No, I think I'm biased, of course. So I love this question because Pollinate Impact, we focus on, we do put incubators and accelerators and ESOs at the center. But you're absolutely right. Most supporters, donors, funders want to support entrepreneurs directly only, right? And I've had conversations with them as well. But if we do get the incubators and accelerators right, the transformation of the whole industry will be exponential, right? Because the accelerators, the incubators are such a linchpin of the ecosystem. They are so directly interconnected with every part of the ecosystem in a way that no other actor is, right? And to combine with that, they have such a deep understanding of the entrepreneurs they work with, right? So one of my incubators, he said, I can spot their bullshit a mile away. Like real talk, right? So, however, you have investors who are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on due diligence. Are they asking the incubator, what do you think? No. Or what challenges have you seen? Or, just having that level of even dialogue. Again, it comes back to trust. There's a lot of resentment and whatever, so that's an issue. But these incubators and accelerators go through hundreds, if not thousands, of entrepreneurs annually. So the volume of information, of trends that they're seeing, if those incubators were better supported, adequately funded, had awesome governance, rock solid talent, their entrepreneurs would totally be unstoppable. Rather than resentment between incubators and investors, there should be mutual respect, right? Like, what are the systems and structures that need to be there? I think Kingwa, touched on it. There needs to be some way to understand who is out there, right? Who's out there, who's doing what, who has interacted with whom. So if I'm evaluating a company, I can go to Bukebo and say, hey, Dodd, I know you're in DRC and I'm evaluating this company. What do you know the company? What are the market infrastructure like, etc. To be able to share that level, of information. And then if we take on the donor side, rather than fighting about budgets and timelines, as we all do with funders who will remain nameless, it kind of goes back to being partners and co-designers of programs to support entrepreneurs. But there needs to be that underlying, again, I think it goes back to the infrastructure and the scaffolding of knowing who's doing what, where, who's supporting whom, who can you plug into, and at some point, fundamentally, who's paying for it? Who is paying for that pre-investment technical assistance that the incubators are providing before the investors can come in and make money? Who's supporting this at which stage? Because at the end of the day, if we don't have answers to that, then I think we're not going to get so far. So I think I'll stop. I'll stop there. But I think
so. There was so much to unpack in that, but I think the one that I want to pull the thread or double click, as some people say, is actually around the talent thing, right? Because it came up as such a key challenge when we spoke to ESOs about both the recruitment as well as the retention of their staff. And when we had this conversation during the writing of the report, I remember you saying we have to make this sector really attractive, right? We want to attract talent to this sector. So if you could speak a little bit about that, because one of the things we heard from ESOs was that, okay, it's already difficult enough so you have the ESO founder who's often had a business in the past as well. So they've kind of experienced the ecosystem of running a business, of maybe even having a business fail, etc. So they were an entrepreneur, they were a startup founder, and they've decided to now start an ESO. So they themselves see themselves as an entrepreneur, and then they face many of the challenges that startup founders face. And one of them is very much recruitment. And then what they said was, okay, recruitment was hard enough, but then retention was just as hard, right? Because within 2 to 3 years, just when our business relationship managers started feeling really comfortable and started excelling and really helping our entrepreneurs, they decided to leave, and often they left for the investor and moved to the investor side. So if you could talk a little bit about that, because I think when we move ESOs to the center, it could create even the sector to look more sexy for employment.
And I think it's kind of bleeding into your last question about the unsung heroes, because to me, those people are the unsung heroes. Your portfolio managers, your program managers, they are often underpaid, right? Because we are operating with resource constraints, those short timelines from funders and outsized expectations. They're working in flat organizations, so there's limited room for growth. And no one, I don't think I've ever met someone who's like, I want to grow up and work in an incubator. If you ask 95% of people or 99% of people how they got in their jobs, they would say by accident, right? If we leave this to chance, we are not building the industry. People will say, oh, I want to be an entrepreneur. Oh, I want to be an investor and I want to make money. nobody says I want to work for an incubator, right? And that staff, they are like they are their cheerleaders for the entrepreneurs, their shoulder to cry on, their financial advisor, their strategist. They're taking late calls because the entrepreneurs are running businesses during the day. They're guides and friends. And because they're coming in fresh to the industry, very often they're poorly equipped, right? So very, very honestly, it's a hidden career path with a unique blend of soft skills, cum business savvy that you can honestly only really learn on the job. And then what happens? The incubator or accelerator where they're working and they spend some time there building them up. And you're right. As soon as they build that skill and whatever, they move on to the better paying industries. So the retention so it becomes this especially in East Africa and Kenya, it's like a totally incestuous circle. Like it's a small group of people. We're rarely getting new blood in. You're going either from this incubator to that incubator, or this incubator to that fund, or from that fund to that donor. I mean, it's just really recirculating the same talent, and we're not getting that fresh blood in either from universities and young people that are coming out because they have zero visibility, or even from mid-career, you know, uh, talent that are tired of the regular grind who would want to do something more impactful, but again, don't have the visibility that this is even an option on the table, right? So it does speak a lot, Yakuta, to making it sexy. Let's make it visible first, then you can dress it up and take it out. Like people don't even know it's there. And I think that's a really big part of the problem. And we're in a people business. That's it. Without your people to deliver the programs, our ESOs and incubators will fall flat, So it's such a critical piece of the problem. And I think as the industry matures, I think we'll get there, but we need to start singing, talking about it from the rafters, and just bringing more visibility to it as a career path.
Yeah. So agree with everything you're saying. If from our audience anyone wants to jump in with any ideas around what kind of incentives to keep people within the sector or what recruitment strategies they've used, or if they just want to put it in the chat, we'd love to hear. Also, to the original question, right? What trade-off happens if you put the ESO in the center rather than the entrepreneur? If
Yakuta,
anyone wants to
I
come
think
up
I
mute.
saw Arun raise his hand earlier. Arun, do you still? Yeah.
Yeah, I can very quickly. I mean, Ariel covered everything because we've been collaborating on this quite a bit right from the coding stage of Pollinate. But two things I wanted to point out, sort of building up on what Ariel was saying. You're asking about trade-offs of keeping ESOs. One of the things you're going to get is ESOs with a wide variety of maturities and wide focal points for their operation. The reason why Pollinate exists is also to harmonize those, right? To keep the conversation centered so that the industry matures rather than individual agendas being pushed forward. The other thing is about talent. One of the things we've been focusing on is to cultivate the secondary line of leadership, or the secondary staff, so to speak. They never get highlighted, even with, because it's so founder centric, even at the ESO level, the enterprise level for that matter, that we forget that to maintain continuity in this sector, you need to really provide opportunities and highlight a secondary level of leadership. But underlying all this is the focus that um, the overarching organization, promoters of this sector, should be promoting collaboration more and more and more, rather than and eliminate the spirit of competing for limited resources. That's the underlying symptom, or the cause of all these is, everybody approaches this with sort of a competitive mind. And so we need to sort of promote that there's this larger piece of pie to be had. Only we collaborate more within the sector. And there are millions and millions of creative ways to come about doing that. That's what I want to add to the conversation. Shut up and listen to the others.
Uh, So fully, if, again, I feel like I'm just agreeing, but I really am. I think especially the point about the secondary level staff, right? So, anyone else want to jump in? This really is your time, your floor. I don't want to regurgitate someone's answer.
I see Kingwa raised her hand again. So Kingwa, please.
Thanks. So one thing is sector consciousness is one thing that would come up if we're putting ESOs at the center of the ecosystem, because then individuals would then be able to realize that the challenges they're not facing are not an individual issue, but there's infrastructural problems that could be traced to their situations. And so because of that, they can then come together and start to make noise, agitate, to get things happening. And so with that, there's a solidarity. So it's having like a oneness consciousness rather than fragmentation. So as an example, yesterday I was out with some friends and when I just walked out of we were like at a lounge, and there was an old guy, an artist, a musician. He had a guitar, and he looked like he was like in his maybe 70s or 80s. And he it was clear that he was kind of like looking for work or looking for somebody to, like he was very much like he was floundering. And we started talking, and he talked about how artists, musicians don't get like they don't get paid. There's no opportunities for them. And I didn't say much to him, but because I've worked in this space for like the last decade, I said as a journalist, I was an arts and culture journalist, and then that's how I kind of like understood all this. But so you see, like with him, he thinks that maybe the problem is that he's not working hard enough, or maybe he thinks that, because we usually we internalize the thing when actually it's a problem of what is the infrastructure? How many concert halls do we have in the city? How much funding is there for creatives? Especially someone of his generation where art was demonized, like local art was demonized. It was not supported. It was not supported by people. It was not supported by the government. So the importance of putting ESOs at the center is that there's that feeling of the solidarity and even the ability to move forward as a group rather than every person being in their little corner trying to tackle the challenge that they cannot be able to tackle on their own.
Yeah, thank you. And collective action actually came up in the solutions list as well. So very well taken point. Rhoda, I want to check in on time. I think we may not have time for the third question, which is really about who is
Right.
the unsung hero. So guys, feel free to write it in the chat. Rhoda, if you can just flash the question on the screen, and then if everyone you want to use the chat. And with that, I'm going to actually close this particular section of the webinar and hand it over.
Thank you. Thanks, Akuta, and thanks, Ariel. Thank you, everybody, for sharing your insights both on the comment section and also comments, the chat, and then as well as also voicing it out. Thanks so much. This was really great. I wish we had more time to, discuss all of this. But again, we want to turn all of these things to action. So we have to move to our breakout room. But before that, we do want to continue more of these conversations. And I think one of the best places to do that for this conversation is at Sankalp, which is happening in 2 weeks. And I wanted to give Karnika from Intellecap some time to talk about it and talk about Intellecap as well. So I'd like to welcome Karnika to the floor.
Hello.
Hi, Karnika. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on the time zones you are. And thanks a lot, Yakuta and Ariel, for the wonderful conversation and everyone who also contributed to it. It was definitely very, very enlightening and very interesting to hear all what you guys have been doing and also the feedback from the people, the conversations that came in. And it's also wonderful to see almost how many we are, almost like 60, 65 people, ESOs from across the continent, across the globe, joining us for this discussion. And just to give a quick background, as Yakuta mentioned, this conversation and this report, that excellent report that WDI has put up, it started at last year's Sankalp, where Yakuta and the team did some FGD surveys and got onto this thing, and now in a great report they have published. And now we also want to continue this conversation at the next Sankalp Summit, which is coming up in 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks' time from now, 26th and 25th and 26th of February. And just to give you a bit of a context about Sankalp, basically Sankalp is an initiative of Intellecap. And Sankalp, this is the 13th edition of the Sankalp that we are hosting here in Nairobi, Kenya. And the Sankalp Forum has basically evolved alongside the entire ecosystem, entrepreneurship ecosystem, which includes the investors, the entrepreneurs, and at the core of it is also the ESOs, which sort of forms the backbone of the entire ecosystem. If you look from the ESO perspective, Sankalp plays three important roles. First, it provides the visibility and validation. So we have discussed a lot about this in just the discussions by Yokuta and Ariel. Many ESOs are doing the transformative work, but they are yet not seen. Their work is not visible. So one of the key vision with which we also hold Sankalp, post Sankalp, is to provide this visibility platform for the ESOs, where they can shape the conversation, and then shape how they want the ecosystem to be evolved and changed as well. The second thing is the cross learning and the standards, and I think that is a very, very key thing. If the entire ESO ecosystem has to evolve, what we discuss about the collaboration, cross learnings, that's very important. And Sankalp provides the platform to that, but we also need to come up with the standards. And I think if as a ecosystem we want to improve where do we sit in the ecosystem, at the center or at the border, we also need to increase the standards and the accountability that we work with. And during the Sankalp, we want to have more and more discussions about this point as well. And lastly, the ESOs can sort of benefit from the Sankalp is in terms of the capital alignment. ESOs are the entrepreneurs themselves. They need a lot of capital, and Sankalp provides the platform to the ESOs to get access to this capital, because we have a lot of funders, investors at Sankalp. So that's like sort of what Sankalp has been doing to build or contributing to build the ESO ecosystem over the past 12 to 13 years across Africa. And if this looks something that is of interest for all of you, so I will suggest you to please come and join us at the upcoming Sankalp Africa Summit, as I said, on 25th and 26th of February in Nairobi, Kenya. My colleague Punita, I think she is here. She will put the link, or she may have already put the link for the summit. So please have a look at it and do reach out for anything, any form of participation that you want to have at the Sankalp, and we'll be happy to explore that. Yeah, so I guess I had 5 minutes. I hope I haven't taken more than 5 minutes. So back to you, Rod.
Not at all. Thank you so much, Karnika, and thank you for sharing. We hope to see more of you at Sankalp. I think it's really great to have events, convenings like this, where we're able to connect with a lot of the ecosystem, and Sankalp is definitely one of them. So see you. And one of the things that Karnika and the team has sent us is a code, which we will send to everybody who's attended today to get a discount for going to Sankalp. So hope that helps to see you there. So, all right. Well, great. Thank you so much again. We will move to our breakout rooms. So this is where we'll need your engagement and participation because as Yakuta was talking about, we have a lot of solutions there and we'd really like on the ground experience and see which ones you as an organization have utilized, have heard of, or if there are some that haven't been covered by the solutions yet that you'd like to share so that we can also document it. This will be the time to do that. So we'll break out into 4 rooms. Each will be facilitated by somebody here. So that's me, Rajat, Ariel, and Tess. Yakuta will be going around and helping see what's happening throughout the 4 rooms. And then there, everybody has time to speak and also go through the solutions that they've tried or things that they've heard that or any innovations that they've seen that would be helpful to document. So more on this in your own breakout room. So the facilitators will go through this with you. So let me just open it up. We have about 15 minutes to do this and we'll see you there.
looks like we are the only group who came back and followed the time. So maybe we can still continue our conversation. Any anybody else wants to share anything?
Yes. So we work with change makers. My organization is called Culture and Communication in Development. And so we work on themes of the creative economy, the human rights economy, and just social enterprise. So just similarly to Donald, that's what we've been doing, working with companies that also kind of like have programs for such groups. So for example, like when it comes to the creative economy, UNESCO is one organization that runs programs targeted for creatives. So what we do is that we reach out to them and we find out what are their priorities, what are they doing, and so we then create particular programs that that enable us to reach out to the people that we are interested in, and so we're able to get paid for that. Also, like in the human rights space, there's a group called the National Coalition of Human Rights Defenders. So that's how we started out, because like when we started, we almost it came out of that sense of a calling and not extreme clarity in
Yeah,
terms of how we
Kinga.
go about this.
Okay, Kingawa, I may have to stop you. Sorry, because I think we have everybody is back now. Uh,
Oh,
Raud, we were just utilizing the time. We realized we came back
Yeah,
first. And so
no
we were
problem.
using the main room as our breakout room then.
that's okay.
No problem. No, that's smart. Thanks, Raja. Thanks, Kingwa, so much. And thank you, everybody. I know the conversation might have ended abruptly. That's just a sign that, we have opportunities to deepen this conversation further through Sankalp and even future conversations, convenings virtually or in person. So I hope everybody had a great time in their breakout rooms. Maybe I'll start with ours. We were rather quiet, but a lot of people were putting their contributions to the slides. So we got to hear some people talk about their programs working with the youth and then how that's been pretty successful and innovative for them, and especially in rural areas. I did see some people add their own work and some links on the slides in ESO program design and financial sustainability, as well as in strengthening the ecosystem. So really excited to see this and then to have them added into the solutions tracker that Yakuta has kindly made for all of us. Great. So I'll maybe pass it on to Raja just to check how
No,
was the
thank
group.
you. No,
Yeah.
I think we were a small but mighty group, so we had some good conversation. I think most of our team members had either were interested or present are testing ideas around financial sustainability. So that was really heartening to see. I think a couple of interesting ideas. There was a validation around how they are using fee for service models in their context and how they are testing those. So a couple of organizations around that, and also a potential approach to setting up a new fund, for example, for SMEs. Well, also, and I think part of it also made us realize that some of these sustainability offerings extend beyond financial sustainability and also into program design. So there were discussions around offering associated consulting services to other ESOs and organizations as well in their context. So yeah, we could not complete the whole discussion. I think we fell short on time. So sorry.
No worries, no worries. And hopefully we get to continue these conversations after this call. But thanks, Rajat, for sharing. That's really great to hear. I will just pull up the feedback form while we are listening to the other groups, just so that we can get feedback on the convening today. We'd love to hear more from you, how we can improve, and what you like best about the session as well. So please let us know through this poll that I've just launched. And while we're listening to that, I'd love to go to Ariel and hear how her group was.
Super. No, we had a great group. Thanks, guys. We really dug into sort of the specialization piece and where incubators and ESOs really find their place in the ecosystem, and how that content can be specialized, how those organizations can take the time to create the trust that Yakuta we were talking about earlier. And the importance also of there's another group that's really facilitating peer learning journeys for incubators in different parts of the world around climate tech. So really embracing that collaboration piece and knowledge sharing across incubators. So really love to see that. And then it was a really interesting comment related to the specialization around there's one organization that supports really small and marginalized businesses, and there was a comment that's not, he didn't say this, but that's not very sexy. Like most organizations won't work with such small businesses, but that's still a very interesting lens of specialization. And then I'll leave you with one of the other folks was considering looking at how incubators and ESOs could look at mergers and acquisitions and how they could actually address a lot of issues related to talent and funding by actually combining their efforts. But that there's a lot of reluctance to do that as we're very emotionally attached probably to our organizations. But I thought very interesting and forward thinking in terms of looking at how we might actually go beyond collaborating to actually merging and unifying in a more actual sense. But yeah, that's
Thanks,
from me.
Ariel. Oh, that's really exciting. There's a lot of great conversations and I think solutions that we can add to Yakuta's tracker. So I'm excited to see those come up for your group. And last but not least, Tess, wanted to hear from you and your group.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Rod. Yeah, so my group was actually pretty interesting. So we had a bag of people who were in listening and some who had actually implemented some of these solutions. So I think for my group, one of the solutions that had a lot of interest was, or a lot of implementation, was improving the ESO program design. So we had some organizations in our group who've actually like engaged in systems level problem solving. Some have also just been able to like implement technical programs with longer durations beyond, the 3 to 6 months. There was another organization whose mandate was actually just offering full stack of services to their clients. So I found that pretty interesting. I think around improving ESO financial sustainability. So we had one organization that actually takes equity from companies, but then we also had an organization that takes a success fee, which I think was pretty interesting. But more than that, I think a solution that's being implemented is receiving performance-based funding. At least we had one organization that had a bit of experience with that. And so, yeah, I think all in all, we didn't manage to get to the last solution, but I think it was nice to see that the organizations in my group had started to figure out some of the solutions and were working through the challenges of implementing some of them. So, yeah, thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, Tess. And I just like to turn over to Yakuta maybe to see what she's gotten from her, maybe going around the groups. And then, of course, to, as she mentioned in the chat, invite people to share their solutions with her. Yeah, Yakuta, please go
So
ahead.
I did not go around the groups. I stayed in room 2 with Ariel because that was such fascinating conversations. So I apologize if I didn't pop into your room. But yeah, I will hand back to you.
No worries. Well, thanks, Yakuta. Well, again, if anybody wants to share more of their solutions, and it's not been featured yet, Yakuta shared her email with us, and we're going to make sure that this is also part of our thank you email, so that we can make your solutions a part of this document, and then that it can help other ESOs who might be trying it out. We can also get to know more about the kind of challenges and experiences you've had trying to implement these solutions. But for now, thank you so much. Thank you again to the William Davidson Institute and Sankalp Dialogues for partnering with us for this one. This is a really great discussion. Thank you, everybody, for being so engaging in the chat and also having this conversation with us. I think this was really great. And hopefully it doesn't end here. Hopefully with the solutions that now we have, we get to see more collaborations and connections happen after this discussion, which is what we're all hoping for, is the outcome of this session. And that we really get to improve the ESO ecosystem, not just in East Africa, but beyond that throughout the Global South and everywhere in the world. So thank you again. Have a great rest of your day. And hopefully we'll see you on the next session. Bye.